Hi, it's Emily on Sailing Vessel Temptress. My husband Clark and I have lived aboard this antique boat full-time, more or less, for the last 8 years, and today I'm going to talk to you about refrigeration, about built-in fridges and some of the external fridges that we've tried and used, and I'm going to tell you what I've liked and not liked about them, so it'll help you, if you're going to be in the market for one of these fridges, to know what to look for. So when we talk about fridges, I'm going to talk about them in terms of an installed, like, part of the boat fridge, something that's built into a cupboard or a cabinet that has parts and requires a lot of yoga to sort of like get in there and service the fridge. And then we have what I'll call external fridges, which are separate fridges that you can pick up and move around. You can put them in a car, you can take it to the beach, you can plug them into your boat, you can decide where it's installed and then move it. You can think of an external fridge, or what I'm talking about as an external fridge, as a cooler with a compressor built into it. You could go on Amazon and just look for a 12-volt cooler and that'll come up. So those are the two types that I'm going to talk about today. If you're living full-time aboard your boat, the best thing you can do is have a built-in installed fridge and hopefully a freezer system all in one. There are upsides and downsides to that. The upside is that it's installed in your boat. It's part of the boat and it takes up hopefully some less space because you can get it really installed where you want it. You're not working with ready-made dimensions. You have something that's custom built for your vessel. Some downsides to that is it's usually going to take a lot of yoga to sort of get in there and service the fridge. You've got to buy different parts, put them together, try to service them. And there's a lot of people, we have a lot of videos on refrigeration. You can check them out up here. Clark gives a masterclass on refrigeration, talks about how we've built and serviced ours. We fix somebody's refrigeration now and then. But if you're not excited about servicing your own fridge and you want something that's more out of the box and ready to go, these sort of external fridges might be right for you. And there might be situations where you want to have both. So if you're preparing to go on a long trip to somewhere where there aren't going to be a whole lot of groceries and you want to bring some sort of food from, let's say, the United States where you're coming, you want to load up, having a separate external deep freeze might be good for you. Also, it gives you a second refrigerator so that if your first one goes down or you have to service it, you can turn it off, have a safe place to put your food while you're servicing your first fridge. And having an external unit gives you the flexibility. If you just moved on to a new vessel, maybe you're not really sure where you want the fridge to go or ergonomically how you want to set up your galley, it gives you the option to put it somewhere, kind of see how much space you need, see how much energy you need, see what your cooking and eating lifestyle is going to be like on a boat, and you can always move it or swap it out and get another one. So it allows you this flexibility to sort of get used to your boat. On top of that, if you go camping, if you've got a cabin, if you want an emergency backup fridge for hurricanes or something like that when you're in Florida or wherever you're living, it gives you flexibility that way. You've got a fridge that you own that is separate from your boat. You can sell your boat and take the fridge with you. So we're a boat now that has the built-in fridge and we have this external fridge. And the way we plan to use it is before we go on a big trip, we'll probably stock up the mobile unit as a deep freeze, and we'll set it to be really cold, so that long-term frozen goods. Then we'll take out things as we need them, put them in our freezer or our refrigerator to use them up. Eventually we'll use up the deep freeze and the deep freeze will get empty, we'll unplug it, we'll save the power, and now we have a box that we can store stuff in. It's a perfectly reasonable box, it's somewhat waterproof, and it becomes just another place to store stuff on the boat. I'm going to spend most of this video talking about the 3 different types of external fridges that we've used and what we've thought of each of them. So far we've borrowed and used an Engel, which are really popular on boats. They're very high efficiency. It's a well-known name, well-known product. They come in all kinds of different sizes. We've used an Alipcool, which is what we had when we were living in our aluminum truck camper for about 9 months. And we now have a Bodega 12-volt fridge freezer that we have aboard the boat. So those are the 3 that I'm going to look at. Engels are really popular among cruisers. They've been around for a long time. They have a lot of name recognition. They're fairly easy to get into and work on. We've borrowed a few of these. The biggest issue with having an Engel on a saltwater vessel is that they rust. They're made of steel and they're super rusty. So anytime you see an Engel, unless it's brand new, and they've started making them with plastic lids, so it's a little less, but you're going to find that they rust really fast. The other downside is that they're very expensive. We looked it up, and they come from 13 liters to 80 liters, but even the 13 liter we found was like close to $1,000. You're going to be spending upwards of $800, $900 on an Engel. Sometimes people want the best thing or the most well-known, reliable thing. You know, go for it. But for us, the fact that it's steel, the fact that it's expensive, made us look around and find other options. The other one that we tried in our aluminum truck camper was an Alipcool. These are really good value for the money. They're kind of like a lower price range. I think ours costs about $100, $120, something like that. It was definitely under 150. It was a smaller unit. We tucked it actually at the foot of our bed inside of the camper. Some downsides to that unit, it didn't have a latching lid. Now they do make other sizes. This is just the one we tried, but this one didn't have a latching lid. So there were a couple times where we sort of overstuffed the fridge, and unbeknownst to us, the lid was open a little bit and we were wasting that energy. The other issue that we found with the Alipcool was that there was a condensation issue. It was sort of sweating in the extreme temperatures of extreme hot or extreme cold, and that was a little bit annoying, especially because it was right by our bed and we would have a little bit of a puddle there on the shelf. But the nice thing about them is they are really compact. We met other people on the camping trip who had those just in their trunk of their car. They're really easy to move around, lightweight, so they're an option and they're pretty economical. The unit we have now is a Bodega. We spent a whole bunch of time, we were getting ready to do some service on our fridge. So I told Clark, you know, let's just get something external like that Alipcool that we had, and let's see if we can use that. It'll ease up our timeline for fixing the fridge. It'll give us something else to just play around with in terms of having space. And we had all this space under our nav station that we weren't really actively using. So we shopped around and we found this Bodega that we liked. It was 30 liters. It came in and we installed it, and it was just perfect. They had a lot of different sizes, so I was able to find one that was just the right size for our space, which was pretty cool. We've been using it for, I want to say, 2 or 3 months now, and we really like it. And it just so happens that Bodega contacted us a few weeks ago and said, hey, would you like to review one of our coolers? And we said, you know what, we already have one and we really like it, so yes, please. So they reimbursed us the cost for this refrigerator, full disclosure, but we bought it anyway, and it was the one we chose before we even knew who Bodega was. So that's the story behind how we got ours. Now I'm going to take you down below and we can take a closer look at what this thing does and how it looks. So I've taken out our chair, which is a little greasy, so I'm protecting myself from the grease here, so that you can get a better look at where we have this installed. Bodega makes a lot of different sizes of these, and one of the things we did was measure out the space where we wanted to put it exactly so we could get the biggest one possible, and the fridge still opens completely. There's about 1 centimeter of clearance above the lid here. While I'm talking about the lid, one of the really nice things about this unit is that it has a latching lid. You can hear it securely closed, so there's no risk of overfilling it and accidentally leaving it cracked open. Also, when you're sailing, it's just more secure to have a latch. Let's talk about how it's powered. This came with, like many of these external fridges do, the option to plug it into DC with a cigarette lighter like you would plug something into your car, and it also came in with a wall charger that has a little unit like this, so you can plug it right into your wall. And the nice thing about this one, which is really cool, is it had a direct to solar plug, so you could literally set up a solar panel and plug this into it. You could take this to the beach, set up your solar panel right next to it. You'd look really cool. You'd have your cold beer running off a solar panel. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. It's got a nice display here, which shows the temperature. It's easy to turn up and down. There's also, like everything else these days, it has a Bluetooth app on your phone that you can monitor your fridge as well. We don't really use it, but hey, it might be a nice feature that you'd like. A big thing about this compared to the Alipcool is that we have not had any condensation issues. I was sort of like touching it all over this morning, trying to find, is there any condensation, any sort of sweat? Nothing. So we have this set pretty low. We're using this to freeze things, and yeah, we're pretty happy with the fact that there's no condensation like there was with the Alipcool. Something to keep in mind when you're sizing out your system is you have to leave room for the ventilation and the cooling of the condenser here. So we've got about this much space on this side. That's all where the air flows. Let's take a look inside. Before we take a look inside, I'll point out this display. There's also, speaking of going to the beach and setting up your solar panel, there's also a USB with a nice waterproof plug here, so you can charge your phone if you wanted to. Nice power button, settings button, easy up down with the temperature. Really easy to use. We open it up. It's got a basket here, so it makes it easy to take things out. We've been running this non-stop for how long? 2 months? 2 months. Something like that. And this is how much frost is in it. So there's a little bit, but there will be with any freezer. The compressor is down here, so this part of the fridge is elevated. It only goes about this much. And I found this really useful for storing things that I want quick access to. We use a lot of butter. We basically only cook with butter and olive oil on our boat, so I always buy a lot of butter. Things like garlic, chocolate that we want to access right away. So I store those here, and then everything else goes in this side. There's definitely a little bit, like the edges are more cold than the middle, so I'll put our ice tubes, which I talk about in another video, sort of in the corners in the morning. I open a new milk for Clark's coffee in the morning, and I use that to make the coffee, then I put it in the freezer. So his comes from room temperature, and then I use the other half for a frozen coffee for myself. So, little trick there. And yeah, you got your ice cold beer, you got your ice tubes, you got, you know, cheese, yogurt, whatever you want. We have this set a little bit sort of as a really cold fridge. Things aren't frozen solid, but we could do that if we wanted to. And I think that's about it. We're really happy with how this has been working for us. Again, we've been using it for a couple months. Haven't had to defrost it yet. There's a little bit of frost, but that's to be expected. Overall, we really like it. Comes in different sizes. Comes in different colors. And lots of different options. If you're a fisherman, you got your ruler right here. You got your nice cup holders. You can have a tray there. All around, just a really useful fridge. It's got these big sturdy handles on the side. Again, no metal. It's all molded plastic over here. So we expect this to last quite a long time and to be something that we could use for a lot of different things. Now that you've seen the fridge, let's take it over to good old Clark, who's going to tell us a little bit more about the energy consumption and some of the technical specs.
Thank you very much, Emily. We now have the Bodega on the table here. And the table, as you know, if you watch my other videos, this is my lab. And I have access to my fancy bench power supply. So we're going to run this off the bench power supply. Let's turn this on. I've got the power supply set for 13.6 volts. And as soon as it boots up, I guess I'll have to cool the temperature down here to turn it on. And there it goes. All right, I was getting worried. Great. It's using a 3 amps. It cycles up and down, but it's 3 amps, plus or minus 1/10 of an amp. That's pretty low. That's pretty low consumption. Also, I did a little test this morning with a stopwatch, and it only runs 1/3 cycle, holding the food in this fridge to 28 degrees Fahrenheit. 1/3 cycle to me at least means it's running 1/3 of the time. So for every hour, it runs for 20 minutes and then it just shuts off and takes some time to lose some coldness for 40 minutes back on again. This seems to be very well insulated. As she mentioned, we don't have any cold feeling or condensation, which is like the #1 issue. On the outside. That Alipcool we had sweated all the time. We actually kind of wrapped this section in blankets to try to help it out. I wouldn't even bother with this. This seems to be a superior unit with that aspect. Now, it can be fired up off the DC with a cigarette lighter, and I'll show you my dodgy little connection. Oops, and that's why it's dodgy. We'll leave it off now. Let me turn it off. The voltage coming in was 13.6 volts. The Bodega has a display that shows you various things, including the voltage it's seeing. That's very handy. It was seeing 12.7 volts. Plenty to run the device, but geez, a whole volt of drop. That's like 8%. The reason for the voltage drop is they were generous, really generous, kind of crazy generous with the length of cord they gave us to plug into the cigarette lighter. Now that'd be really important if this was in the back of your car and you wanted to plug it up in the cigarette lighter. You absolutely need the long cord, and it's worth it. Got an alternator running, fine. But when I do the more permanent install of this, and we like it enough, we're going to build some strapping and lock it right in underneath that nav station. I will run this wire to where I've got some nice big wires, a good junction. Maybe I'll put it on its own circuit breaker so it's easy to turn off, and then clip. Make this wire much shorter and a heavier gauge. If you're interested in that, I won't go into it in depth, but remember I got that master class where we talk about Ohm's law and you can understand the math of why. But in short, Long wires cause voltage drop wastes power. It's good to save power because, you know, on a boat, you're making all the power, whether that be solar or a generator or whatever. It's still, you know, a burden to make the power. And it's power you can't use for other things. I'm extra double super important to me that the refrigeration be efficient. Refrigeration uses a lot of power. It's running all the time. And even at that low power draw, if you add it up, if you do your little analysis of all the power, Emily did some videos, power budget, I think she called it, you'll find that top of the list almost always is refrigeration. You might think of the microwave as being a huge power load. It uses 150 amps. Yeah, for 30, 40 seconds, maybe a minute. This is going to be using 3 amps throughout 1/3 of the entire day, every day, all the time. So if you could make yourself a 5% savings, that adds up. Now, what I'd really like to do is dive into this because I really want to know. I'm going to pull this cover off and I'm going to look at the compressor and see what it's using and comment on that. We'll do that off camera because, you know, you don't want to watch me take screws out. I'll be right back. Got it open. Nothing surprising. I was kind of hoping to see a Seacamp BD35F. It isn't, but it sure looks like one. I'm sure it's a Chinese knockoff. Anyway, if you want to look it up, it's a GMCC DE25M1P-B. You can find everything about the compressor given that information. It's using 134A, of course. Here's the condenser section, pretty straightforward. They have a nice fan here blowing across it. Doesn't make any real noise, so must be a low power fan, but very adequate. So know that the hot air is going to come out in this region. Here's the filter dryer, cap tube going up, do the magic, then the gas comes back here. A little flippy flip here so that it would not vibrate and break the solder joints. Then into the compressor. Of course, back out to the compressor over here and follow the cycle. This port over here would be where if it started leaking gas, you could get access to the low pressure side. You'd have to cut this tubing right here. Actually, they've crimped it here. I guess you'd have to unsolder this with high temperature, get that out. But unlikely you would ever do that, partly because they just don't leak very much. And mostly because we paid 200 bucks. How much effort are you going to put into something that costs 200 bucks, right? You get a new one. It's just how the world is nowadays. Anyway, I think this is a fine way to do this. I like more that it is a $200 unit than I like that it has a known compressor. I'm sure this compressor will work just fine. I'm sure it is a total ripoff of one of the best compressors ever made. That's my review of the inside. Back to Emily.
So hopefully this helps you a little bit with your fridge buying research. Again, we really like this Bodega. I think we would probably buy another one if we went back to the States and went camping again. We might even replace the Alipcool with a Bodega. If you found a fridge, a mobile fridge that you like, please leave it down in the comments and check out the description. We're going to put a link to this particular fridge, and there's a pretty significant discount coupon that we were able to get for you guys, so check that out there. We'll also put it in our Amazon store. Thanks so much for watching, and talk to you soon.